There's a lot of people running around doing what they call 12-step work that ought to be home knitting. They have no business. They're out there carrying a message they don't have. Every person seems to have in AA anymore today their own idea about this way this program should be worked. Well, believe me, if we had this many ideas, we'd be in worse shape than we are now. There's only one way to work this program. I would like to give you my conception about what this program means, why it's written the way it is, and what it's supposed to do, and what you and I are supposed to do. Now, I say this, I make this statement as a person who was here before we had this 12-step program. So it ought to have a little more, perhaps, weight or authority to it, because I helped write this program. Now, I'm not waving any flags about this. This is one of these historical things, just one I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I was in on the writing of this program, so I do have some definite ideas about these steps. And I hear some people, people ask you, when should I take these steps? When should I take the first one? Do I have to take them in rotation? Do I have to read the steps? It tells very plainly. Let me tell you what I think about these steps and what they mean and what they're intended to do. And I hope it will help some of you folks if you need this type of thing. I only talk about fundamentals in AA. I never did get to be too modern in AA. I don't run for any offices. I am not a politician. And I don't give a hoot for any politics in AA. I'm a guy that believes in fundamentals, and I stick pretty close to them, and I'm probably the happiest guy in AA. I don't have any headaches. And nobody can argue me out of what I'm just too thick-headed to be modern. So let me tell you what I think about this program. Maybe you can stay sober 29 years and have fun doing it. I have no use for a guy staying sober and being miserable about it. That isn't the way to do it. Have fun. I'm younger now than I was 29 years ago, I can guarantee you. Because I can do things today I couldn't do then. I know this. Now, originally we started in the Oxford group. Bill Wilson was an Oxford grouper. Ebby Thatcher took him in the Oxford group in New York. Doc Smith, Oxford grouper, in Akron. He'd been going to the Oxford group 2 years and a half before he ever met Bill Wilson. But he was drunk every night. It's a big difference. When Bill was approached by Ebby Thatcher back in 35 sometime, or 34, please turn the tape over. Thatcher, back in 35 sometime, or 34, Bill stayed sober. He got to Akron, you've read that story, and he met Doc through various means. He finally got together with Doc, and Doc only got drunk once after Bill talked to him. But Doc got interested and got enthused and got working on alcoholics in the Oxford movement in Akron, Ohio. And being a medical doctor, he had access to the city hospital in Akron. He was on the staff there, and he used to wheedle his drunks into Akron under some pretenses. I know that he didn't put any of them in for alcoholism. I know my diagnosis was acute gastritis. And I suppose I had that too. But that's what was on my chart. And Doc had that advantage. He could put fellas out of circulation and put them in the hospital and sober them up safely. So the AA went along very well in the Akron area, in the Oxford group. It didn't go too hot in New York for a long time. And Doc was a spiritually motivated man. He was a medical doctor, a man of science, but he was very spiritually motivated. Doc was. He would continuously quote Scripture. He had things that he would answer. You'd ask him questions, he'd answer them in Scripture to you. One of Doc's favorites, and I think it's one of mine, he used to say, we talk about these first things first, you know. He'd say, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. This is where our first things first came from. Doc used to use this a lot. Well, the Oxford movement, we were born in that, and the Oxford movement were a bunch of people trying to live good lives according to spiritual principles. And what they called it was life-changing. When we wrote our program of AA, this was a life-changing program. This was not a sobriety program. You don't see the word sobriety in our program. You show me where it is in the 12 Steps and I'll eat the magazine. See? This is a life-changing program. And in order to change a person's life, there has to be some things evident. The first thing has to be evident is the need for a change. So I claim that our program is divided into 4 phases. So the need is in the first step, where we admit. Our 4 phases in our program are this way. They're admission, submission, restitution, and construction. The first step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's our first step. That's the admission. Okay, we have a place to start. So what? If we're going to change our lives and our life is unmanageable, we have to turn our will and our life over to the care of God. So the 2nd through the 7th steps are the steps of submission. Let me read these 2nd through 7th steps. Second one says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Some people quarrel about that sanity bit. I'm glad that that's in there, boy. That takes me off the hook. I'd hate to think that some of the things I did when I was drinking, I did the acts of a sane man. So I came to believe it. Why did I come to believe it? I came to believe it because of the example of these other men. They told me their stories. I wanted what they had. They told me that a power helped them. I wanted that, so I wanted to believe it. That's how I came to believe it, and I think that's how most of us do. Third step, it says we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Wait, first we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of this God. We made a decision. When you ask an alcoholic to turn his will and his life over to the care of some ethereal creature here of whom he knows very little and probably scared of, this is doing a lot, you know? I think that step there is where you separate the men from the boys. You either hurt badly enough to do it or you don't. But when you make a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God, if you don't hurt a whole lot, you're not going to do it. So then we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. I don't think that any alcoholic worthy of the name is capable of doing that step by himself. I think it requires the help of a knowledgeable person or a sponsor. The next step suggests that there was someone at our elbow and helped us with it, because it says we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. This doesn't mean we stand up here in public and undress in front of everybody. This is quite different than that. It says here we admitted to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. That's where we make our confession. And it says the next step, we were entirely ready, not kind of ready or about to be, it's entirely. An alcoholic he's entirely in everything he does. He says we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. All of them. There's some defects of character I'd like to keep. Very interesting ones. The program don't allow for that. And this is where a lot of people flop. They make up their own program. The program don't call for any deviation from this. And it says we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. We humbly asked Him. We didn't make a deal. We didn't say, God, if you'll do this, I'll do that, like we used to do when we were drunk. No, we humbly asked Him to remove these shortcomings. All right, that's our second phase. That's the admission and submission. We have now submitted our will and our lives to the care of God. We've actually done this. All right, we're in the next phase. If we're going into a new life, we can't make a new life unless we try to clean up something in the old. We can't, as a good book says, we can't put new wine in old casks, in old bottles. Now, we have to make restitution, so the next phase is restitution. It says we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That attitude of willingness to make amends to everybody is what's important, because obviously we can't make amends to everyone. We don't know every person we've harmed, and some people are not available anymore. We just have to leave that to God. The next step says we made a list of all persons, and it says we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So then our restitution is made. Now I want to make a statement here. I want you to listen very carefully to this statement. Because I made this statement in a group one time and started a riot. We got a lot of this unity we talk about after this. After we have taken 9 steps in AA, you can forget those 9 steps. You're done with them. You never have to be concerned about those first 9 steps anymore, except in 2 instances. If you resign and resume, you're going to have to go all through them again. Or if you're trying to explain this program to a new person, you have to know what these 9 stand for. But for your own use, you never have to use them anymore unless you get drunk, unless you quit AA. Remember that. But you must do the 9. And when you have done the 9 steps, something has happened to you. Your life has changed. It can't help but change because you admitted that you can't do anything yourself, and you have asked God to take these problems and to help you. And it says in a good book, anything you ask believing ye shall receive. If you have that type of faith, you are through drinking. You are done with it. But you must take those 9. That should answer a lot of questions about people when they talk about how I should take these steps. They're written in a rotation, purposely. There's a reason why they come the way they are. And I've tried to outline this reason as briefly as possible. Now, you've done 9 steps. What happens? The last phase of this program is a phase of construction. Here's where we construct a life. The last 3 steps are the steps we live by. The 10th step says we continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. Can you imagine a rummy who has not had his life changed admitting anything? He won't even admit it's raining outside. It might involve him in something. Gee, admit things? Good. I'll tell you, it'd be nice. I know that none of you people ever been in court. But if someday you have time, it's your civic duty, you should go down and listen to what goes on in these courts someday. See what people are doing with your money and with your time. You'll see some guy drug up there, he's been drunk. He's out driving a car, he's got a DWI against him, he's wrecked a couple automobiles, he's gone through a storefront, he's tipped over a milk wagon, he fought the police, and he winds up in jail. And he comes out, and he's out there in the court, they read the charge against him, or all the charges, and the judge looks at him, he says, you were drunk. Not me. You were drinking. Nope, not him. After a lot of cajoling, he'll finally break down and he'll admit to having had a couple of beers. You know, there's nobody ever gets in trouble drinking whiskey, but those guys that had a couple of beers, they raise hell. Don't ever admit anything. It might involve you. So here it is. We continue to take personal inventory. This is our day by day. This is an important step. This is something, maybe I can tell you how I take mine every day. It might be helpful to someone. Every night when I lie down in bed, the last thing before I go to sleep, I have my little prayer time. And I think about my day. And I think about what I've done today. Sometimes I'm not too proud of some of the things I've done today. And sometimes I am. If I am proud of something I did, I give myself credit. You're a good boy today. You did all right there. If I haven't, I owe somebody an apology. I try to do it. I try to take care of that as soon as possible. This is what the 10th step means to me. This keeps those little things from growing into big things. Because it's the little things that kill us. It's not the big things. There's not too many big things happen to any of us. But every day of our life, there's numerous little things that we have to contend with. And those are the things that really throw us, not the big things. So that 10th step keeps us conscious of how we're conducting ourselves every day and straightening up the thing as we go along. Things won't build up on us that way. It's great insurance. It's a great way to live, really is. You might know that, most of you. Some of you probably don't. Let's get in that 11th step. What is this step? It's a tremendous step. Why? This 11th step is a beginning of a prayer life. It teaches us how to begin a prayer life. Listen to this step very carefully. Listen to the wording of it. It's tremendous, this step. It says here, we sought through prayer and meditation. We're seeking something, it says. We sought through prayer and meditation. What's that? What's prayer and meditation? Prayer is talking to God. Listening, meditation is listening to Him. We have to talk to Him, we have to listen. The good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. What does that suggest to you? I thought so. We sought through prayer and meditation. What are we seeking through prayer and meditation? To establish a conscious contact with God. What does that mean? I want to feel that He's here. And I can feel Him, I can touch Him, I can talk to Him, I can be at one with Him. A conscious contact. Just as though I can go over and touch this fellow, put my arm around him. This is what I want to feel. I don't want to feel that my God is way beyond the stars where I can't reach Him. The step tells me otherwise. I must establish this conscious contact with God. Now, it says something else here. What does it say? It says, I'm praying for something. What am I praying for? It says, I'm praying only for knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. That step doesn't say anything about praying for a sobriety. You've already got that. You don't have to pray for sobriety. God has given you sobriety in those first 9 steps. You've got it. You're not praying for a new job, a new yacht, or a new wife, or a new husband, or a new home, or anything like that. We're only praying for knowledge of God's will. What does God want me to do? And I want the power to carry it out. The good book tells us He will never put anything on us that He doesn't give us the power to perform. Do you believe that? Do you have faith you believe that? That's the 11th step. That starts us on a prayer life. After we get into a prayer life, there's a lot of things we can do later on, but this is our beginning. This is what we need. This is simple for people like you and me who need such a thing. The words in these 200 well-chosen words in our steps are profound, yet so simple. Trouble is most of us try to complicate it so. The last step. Here's one for you. This last step. People say to me, they come and ask me, when should a person do 12-step work? For heaven's sake, read the steps. They'll tell you. Here's when you should do 12-step work. It says, having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. There's a lot of people running around doing what they call 12-step work that ought to be home knitting. They have no business. They go out there carrying a message they don't have. This program is a tremendous gift to you and I, the gift of God. We better, by golly, do what's right by it and with it. It puts a responsibility on us.